his childhood.
Welcome to episode 29, Pull for the J podcast. I'm your host, Josh Felton. We've got new content coming out today. Let's get to it. Man, it's the NFL, MLB, college football, NBA, all wrapped up in one episode. But first, we're going to talk about the World Series. You know, I don't think I give baseball enough love. We're going to talk about the World Series first. I don't give baseball enough love, and I'm sorry, baseball fans. I've heard some of you guys be like, "Where's the baseball content? It's the World Series. It's the close." I'm gonna show you enough love today. Matter of fact, the World Series is already almost halfway over, but I'm gonna talk about it anyways. I'm gonna go back as far as Astros Rays because they deserve love. Astros Rays, right? Rays took this series in 7. Very entertaining series. I was afraid Tampa fans, y'all had me worried. You know how I feel about the Houston Astros. You know how I feel about them. You know how I feel about these Houston Astros. I can't stand them. I'm a Nationals fan growing up, right? Even last year I couldn't stand the Astros. When I found out they cheated, that only made matters worse. I can't stand them. And you guys almost blew a lead to them. But Game 7, y'all had fantastic pitching. Fantastic pitching. I don't know who y'all had. I don't know who the Astros had or who the Rays had in Game 7 of this series. I don't know who they had pitching. I think they had who did they have pitching? Who did they have pitching? Game 7 y'all had Presley? No, that's who the Astros had. Excuse me. Astros had Presley. Y'all had Morton. Charlie Morton. Fantastic. 7 hits, 2 runs. That's fantastic. You guys took an early lead, which is what you need against the Astros. An early lead. If you can keep an early lead off of great pitching, you'll be fine. You guys took a commanding 3-0 lead in like the second inning of that game and never looked back. I've always said my opinion on baseball is it's not really as important to have great hitting as you do great pitching. Because I would say, as a Nationals fan, I'd say although our hitting was good, it was clutch, it was timely. I would say the fact that we could rely on so many starting pitchers, we could play them like 2-3 games, 2.5 games a series, right? Scherzer would play, like I remember Dodger series last year, right? Scherzer play 1 game, then relief in the second game, pitch in the last game. So he's basically in 1, 2, and 5. Strasburg's in 2 games, right? We had Corbin. You know, the Rays have pitching. The Rays have reliable pitching, and they get timely hits. They may not be lighting up the scoreboard all the time. Like in these games I'm seeing against the Astros, they have 4 runs, 3 runs, 5 runs, 2 runs, 4 runs, right? They're not lighting it up. They're not like the Dodgers who, if you ask me, I think the Dodgers can probably put up 10 runs in a game, right? In Game 1 of the World Series, they put up 8, right? But I think you guys have more reliable pitching than the Dodgers. I don't know what I'm going to get from Kershaw every night. I don't even know what I'm going to get from Kershaw the rest of the series. He was pretty good in Game 1, but, you know, he's a little past his prime. We don't know what we're going to get from him. But right now, the series is 1-1. Rays took Game 2, 6-4. The Dodgers took Game 1, 8-3. So Game 3 and 4 and 5, Game 3, 4, and 5 are in Tampa Bay. I want to be bold here and say the Rays win this series in 5 games, but I'm not going to do that because the Dodgers have power. And I do think the Dodgers can get one in Tampa Bay, but I like Tampa in 6. My prediction, I'm going to go Tampa Bay in 6. You can write that down. Tampa Bay in 6. I expect Tampa to probably go up 3-1 in this series, and I think they have enough. They have reliable pitching, and they can get timely hitting to close out the series in LA. I do think the Dodgers can get one more, but I like Tampa Bay's pitching. Also, another reason I'm not really picking the Dodgers is because the Dodgers, I won't say they're a cursed franchise, but they just seem to me like they're just going to be destined forever to like be right there and then not get it. Like, it's like just out of reach, like you're just reaching. It's like you're reaching for that hope, and they're just going to be a little bit out of reach. It's just a little bit out of reach this World Series. So I'm going to go Tampa in 6. If you're a Tampa fan, comment down below. If you're a baseball fan in general, comment down below what you think this series is going to go. Because I'll be checking it out. I'll be trying to respond. Tell me who do you think is going to win this series and why. Tell me who do you think will win and why. But as for me, I'm going to go Tampa in 6. This has been a good series, though. This has been a fantastic series. Looking forward to in this series. Speaking of games, I mean, since we're on the subject, we're gonna little bit of a transition from baseball. Another sport, that I've really been neglecting lately. And I'm sorry if you're a fan of college football, and you've been like, where's the college football content? We're here now. Week 7 of the college football season. Excuse me, not week 7. What am I on? Is this really week 7? Isn't this technically? Technically, this is week 7. A lot of teams have only played like 4 or 5 games, but this is week 7 for the college football season, or week 7 just passed. Excuse me. There were some pretty good games this week. A couple of good games. First, I want to start with the Alabama Georgia, which was basically the game of the year. Game or not game of the year. As of right now, it's been the game of the year. I picked Alabama to win by like 24 because I was just like, Alabama just seems like a better team. Georgia's defense, I knew they were the real deal. But again, the teams Georgia was playing, I wasn't convinced. I wasn't convinced that Georgia could do it against Alabama. Georgia football, Georgia has played. Let me look at the teams Georgia has played. The Georgia Bulldogs have played this season already. They've played Arkansas, not bad. Auburn, which is a good team, but their offense is not good at all. Tennessee, another good team, but their offense is not good at all. Then you play Alabama, a fantastic offense. And you see what happens, right? They gave up 10 points in week 1, 6 points in week 2, only 21 in week 3. So you're thinking, hey, they've only given up, right, in today's NFL or in today's football where it's average for teams to score about 24 to 28 points. You're really holding them under what league average would be. You're a fantastic defense. You guys, Georgia has first round picks all over that defense. They have NFL players all over that defense. LeCount's going to the NFL. Stokes is going to the NFL. Those are just defensive backs, right? You've got talent. But I knew coming in, I said Alabama's wide receivers. Alabama might be wide receiver nation. They might be the best school for wide receivers in the nation. I'm trying to think of all the receivers that they have. They've produced Julio, Amari Cooper. What do they got? Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy's in there, Henry Ruggs. That's just 5, and they've got valid players now. They've got Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, right? They've got Mechie, the sophomore. They've got talent. They've got weapons. Mac Jones can throw the football. He learned from Tua. He can sling the football. He can chuck some wood. That man can throw the football. And they really tested Georgia last week. But ultimately, I don't think Georgia played a bad game. What I think the secret was is that Alabama has Nick Saban. Alabama has Nick Saban. And Nick Saban's, as a Georgia fan, you guys know, Nick Saban is the best at making adjustments. I don't want to remind you, so I'm not going to remind you. But I'm going to remind you. You saw in the national championship game, you saw in the SEC championship game a couple years ago. This man is not afraid to pull his starting quarterback if he's playing poorly because he wants to win. He's going to make those adjustments. At halftime, they were down 24-21. Or excuse me, 20-24. And he came in there, made the adjustments, and held Georgia scoreless the rest of the game. Part of that, I think, is Georgia's offense isn't quite at the level that it was last year. You know, they got Stetson Bennett in there, and he's not Jake Fromm by any means. And you know, they don't really have the weapons that they did last year, which is why their offense doesn't look as fantastic, right? But again, credit Alabama's defense. I wasn't sure if they could get the job done, but they really did. They really played impressive football last week. And Nick Saban really knows big games that his team needs to perform, and that's what they did last week. So that's really my analysis of Alabama versus Georgia. I thought it was a fantastic game. Fantastic game. It was a fantastic game. Going into other games, Notre Dame, Louisville, 7-12 ball game. Notre Dame's a 4 seed. I honestly expected Notre Dame to play better than they did. They got the win, so you know nothing's going to change for them. But they should have put up more than 12 points. And it's another thing in the ACC, high scoring in the ACC. You're going to play Clemson later this year, and you better put up more than 12 points because if you have college bowl aspirations, you need to play better than that. Another ACC team there's a lot of ACC teams that are ranked so high right now because the Big Ten hasn't played yet. North Carolina, a 5 seed, also took that L last week to Florida State. I don't know how that happened either because Florida State is nowhere near that level. Just a little bit more summaries. Really, I'm gonna just go through the upsets at this point. South Carolina beat Auburn. Another thing, that's why I initially had Auburn really high. I thought Auburn Georgia was going to be a great game until I saw like the first drive, the first 2 drives of both teams. I was like, yeah, this is over. Auburn jumped, their O-line jumped so many times, but that's besides the point. The upset here, I didn't watch this South Carolina Auburn game, but Bo Nix really struggled. He threw the ball 47 times and only completed 24 of his passes. So he's barely above 50%. That's not really that good. Only 272 yards. Just struggled overall. Great defense by South Carolina. Kentucky versus Tennessee. Kentucky stomping Tennessee. I didn't expect Tennessee to, after what I saw from the Georgia game, I was like, okay, you lost. You struggled in the second half, but I really thought that it showed promise. Like, oh, Tennessee, with only 1 loss, they can do something. They have potential. And I don't know, they just ran into a wall and never really played well against Kentucky. That's unfortunate. Virginia Tech, 40-14 win over Boston College. There were a few games that were postponed that I would have liked to have seen. I would have loved to have seen Oklahoma State Baylor, because Baylor, obviously, just because they're not ranked and Oklahoma State is number 7, I still believe that would have been a great game. A very competitive game. And LSU Florida, 2 SEC teams. LSU's not the national championship team that they were last year, but nonetheless, I think them against the 10th seed of Florida will still be an entertaining game. Still be very entertaining. But we have week 8. We have week 8 to look forward to. Illinois, Wisconsin, first game played in the Big Ten. Looking forward to that. Nebraska, Ohio State, another Big Ten matchup. We finally get to see the 5th seed Ohio State. Chances are, if I had to guess, Ohio State might jump into the top 4 after this week. I don't know if they will, but I think they might, just out of respect. Syracuse, Clemson, that'll probably be an easy Clemson win, if I had to guess. Carolina, NC State, 2 ranked teams, right? And we've got Alabama versus Tennessee. I expect Alabama to try some new things on defense and continue bolstering up their offense. I think they'll have another probably 40, 50-point night. And I think, honestly, if you're Alabama, you should consider, like, if you get up big in this game, consider playing like your Bryce Young or your backup quarterback, because after Mac Jones is there, they're going to need that time. That's one thing I'll say about, like, Tua. I remember, like, Vanderbilt game, you get to see him in action in regular season, so you have more confidence in him in the postseason. Just something Alabama might want to think about. Some more ranked games. Iowa State, Oklahoma is also this week. Michigan, Minnesota is this week. Virginia versus Miami is not ranked, but I still might check that out because that'll be interesting. And, of course, Cincinnati, SMU. So we've got some good games in college football that I think are going to be entertaining. And definitely check those out because that's going to be some high-scoring games, some great defensive games, and they'll definitely shake up the predictions and the rankings in the college football playoffs for this week. Shifting on to the NFL. NFL season is well underway. Week 6 is just about over. Actually, it is over. And I want to just share my thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to call this an ode to Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm going to put the sunglasses on really quickly because I feel this is important. Let me put the sunglasses on. You know I wear glasses, so I really can't see without them. But I'm going to put the sunglasses on and adjust the camera. Oh, Cowboys fans. I know it's been hard for you last week. QB1 Dak Prescott is out for the year. And now you have Andy Dalton. But not all hope is lost. Why is that? Because you play in the NFC East. So you know what that means? Even if you lose your starting quarterback, even if you lose Old Faithful, who hasn't missed a start in his 5-year NFL career, not all hope is lost. Because you have so many offensive weapons around you that even if you do have Andy Dalton, hopefully you should be able to beat the Washington football team. Hopefully you should be able to beat the New York Giants. Hopefully you should be able to beat the struggling Philadelphia Eagles, who are also not healthy at all. Therefore, Cowboys fans, I do not want to hear any excuses from you guys if you don't win the division. Yes, I said it. Yes, I realize, I understand your quarterback is out for the year. But guess what? Andy Dalton right now is still better than Kyle Allen. Is still better than maybe Daniel Jones. Dare I say Carson Wentz? So, you guys play Washington this week. I will be watching. Oh yeah, I will be watching. And if you lose, I will come back on the show. And I will put the glasses right back on and proceed to flaming you guys. Because not only is your defense pathetic, but after watching that Arizona game, putting up 10 points, turning the ball over 4 times, you continue to do that, you continue to play like that, and you won't win the NFC East. You won't get to the playoffs. You might not even win 6 games if you keep playing like that. So, I'm going to take these glasses off and get serious now, but understand I'm not playing around when I say that. Y'all better get your act together. Better get in the film room and figure out what you've been doing wrong. Because that Cardinals game on Monday was not it. Zeke fumbled the football 2 times. All I heard was Cowboys fans saying, hey, give the ball to Zeke. Okay. Can't fumble the ball. He's fumbled the ball, I think, 7 times this year. He's fumbled the ball more times, almost as many times this year as he has his whole career, which is wild. And we're only 6 games into the season. He averages about a fumble a game, which is unacceptable. You can't have that. So, Washington versus Dallas. Who am I going to pick? I'm a little biased, I'm not going to lie. But the reason I'm picking Washington is this simple. I'm picking Washington to win this game. I'm picking Washington to win this game probably 17-13. I don't think it's going to be high scoring because Washington's offense isn't that spectacular. But their defensive line is pretty good. And from what I've seen is with Andy Dalton as quarterback, really if you just get pressure to the quarterback, the weapons he has around him really aren't as impactful, right? Part of the reason why Andy Dalton struggled is because it was so much pressure. So much pressure. They were blitzing him. They were throwing different looks at him. He just didn't know how to react. I expect Washington to try and do the same thing. And Washington's at home. If this was in Dallas, it'd be a different story. But it's in Washington, so I'm going to go 17-13 Washington, which means, Dallas Cowboys fans, that you guys will be a whopping 2-5 next week if my prediction is true. And Washington will be 2-5 and probably leading the division. Maybe leading the division. So Cowboys fans, I'm going to put the glasses back on one more time because I'm warning you. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but you guys are probably the most respected team in the NFC East. I'm speaking for NFC East fans. I'm speaking to Cowboys fans, though. Get your act together. I don't know if you need to call in and speak to Andy Dalton and Mike McCarthy himself about what needs to happen, you better do that. Because if you guys lose this week, it's not going to be pretty seeing my face again. And that's a fact. So get that act together. But I'm picking Washington 17-13. Comment down below what you think Washington's record, or not Washington, what the score of this game is going to be. And why. But that's my prediction. That's pretty much what I predict. 17-13 Washington. Now let me go back to the rest of these games because there were still some great games that happened this week. There were some great games that happened this week. We saw the Texans play the Titans. I love the Texans. I root for the Texans. I've been an Andre Johnson fan since he was on the team, like almost more than 5 years ago, like 8 years ago. And I was appalled at the coaching decision I saw. So you're telling me that you go for 2 when the best case scenario is you go for 1. If you go for 1, that literally means that the score is 8. If you go for the field goal, the extra point, the lead goes from 7 to 8. You proceed to go for 2 to make it a 9-point lead in a 2-possession game. Why? Literally, why? Literally, why? I don't understand. Can somebody explain? Help me, please. Because I'm trying to understand this. If you go for 2, knowing that going for the extra point is your best option, do you deserve to be, dare I say, do you deserve to be a coach? Like, that's simple math. That's 2 plus 2 is 4 minus 1 is 3. That's quick math. As the man Big Shaq said, that's quick math. You should know if we go for the extra point, we are up 8. Meaning, worst case scenario is they score a touchdown and get the 2-point conversion, which means the game is going to overtime. You made that way too easy for Tennessee. That could have been your second win of the season. Instead, you proceed to blow it away to Tennessee just for them to get the ball first in overtime and Derrick Henry their way to another overtime win. To Derrick Henry their way to an undefeated week, to another undefeated record at 5-0. Now you've got poor Deshaun Watson out there on his lonesome. You know what I'm saying? You got Deshaun Watson out there on his lonesome, throwing to whoever's in white, even if they're not covered. He doesn't have his best wide receiver option out there. And he played his best game only for a coaching decision to cost him his best performance of the year. You should be ashamed, Texans. That was disgraceful. If you make that coaching decision again next week, and you might not have a job. because that's ridiculous. Comment down below what you think about that decision. Do you think maybe some of y'all might think it's a smart decision? I personally don't think it's a smart decision at all. I think that was clueless, and whoever made that decision needs to get up and leave. Y'all are 1-5. But a couple more games to talk about. Falcons got their first win of the season. Round of applause for the Atlanta Falcons. Round of applause. Round of applause for the Atlanta Falcons. Getting their first win of the season against the Minnesota Vikings, who are also 1-5. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm disappointed in Minnesota. I personally thought Minnesota would probably be the second best team in the NFC North. But I guess I was wrong about that. I slept on Chicago. Shout out Chicago Bears, man. What they're doing with Nick Foles at quarterback, playing behind a strong defense at 5. They're 5-1 right now. They're gonna shock some teams come postseason. I think they're gonna make the playoffs and they might win the division. They might win that division. Keep sleeping on them. 49ers beat the Rams. Packers got smoked by the Buccaneers in a game I didn't expect. I didn't expect Aaron Rodgers to struggle like he did. But hey, Tampa Bay has really been impressive since after week 2. I've really been impressed with what I've seen from them. You know, Tom Brady's not really lighting it up, but he's playing great football. He's playing the football that gave him success, that where he succeeded at in New England. Right? He's playing great football. Speaking of New England shocked me last week. I wasn't expecting them to lose to the Broncos the way they did. I wasn't expecting them to lose to the Broncos, period. I mean, the Broncos just threw so many different looks at Cam Newton that he was just lost. He was lost in the sauce. He didn't know what was happening. They threw so many looks at him, he couldn't even get the ball away a lot of the time. And that was really part of the struggle. But Bill Belichick's, again, he's fantastic in making adjustments. They play San Francisco this week. I expect New England to come out and play dominant football and probably get that victory. I expect them to get that victory. A Bill Belichick team missing the playoffs, I haven't seen it happen in my lifetime. I don't expect it to happen this year. So I expect them to get that win against San Francisco. Last but not least, I want to talk about one more thing, because this isn't really a recap game from week 6, but Tua Tagovailoa was just announced to be the starter for the Miami Dolphins in week 8, because they don't play in week 7. So shout out to Tua, right? The quarterback prodigy from Alabama. He can really throw the football. And he got a little bit of time last week in the Dolphins' 24-0 victory against the Jets. Right? He got like a minute. He didn't really throw the ball, I don't think, but a couple of times. But I think the Dolphins really believe in this guy. The Dolphins really believe in Tua. I believe in Tua. And I think he just opens up this offense a whole lot more. I think he sees the field really well, and he's a mobile quarterback. If he could stay healthy out there, I don't see a reason why he can't be the cornerstone of this franchise. He just gets their offense up to a whole nother level. I'm looking at the Dolphins right now, and they're 3-3. They're in the middle of a not really close AFC East, but it's really early. They're only 3-3, right? They still have to play the Bills another time. And last time they only lost to the Bills by 3 points, right? They've played pretty good defense for the most part, right? 21 against New England, that's about average. Even though they couldn't score on offense, that's not bad. It's pretty good defense. 31 against the Bills, that's a little bit high, but they put up 28. Held the Jaguars to 13, held the Seahawks. The Seahawks got 31, which is a little bit high, but it's about in a high-scoring NFL league, that's not bad. 17 against the 49ers, that's amazing. And then held the Jets scoreless. That's impressive. I haven't really had questions about their defense. It was like, what am I going to get from the offense-wise productively? And Ryan Fitzpatrick was like, okay, you get something good sometimes, but you really don't know. I had the same thing about Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville. I was like, okay, sometimes he'll give me an efficient couple touchdown night, pretty good. And then sometimes there's an APB out for him. He's nowhere to be found. But I think with Tua, you're going to see consistency. I haven't really seen And when he was in Alabama, granted, Alabama had way more, like, the talent differential was way higher in Alabama compared to other teams. In the NFL, it's all professionals. So, talent wise, the differential is not going to be as high as it was in Alabama. But I've yet to see Tua ever have a really bad game outside that national championship game. And you can argue it was just an off night for him is probably a career high for some quarterbacks. So, if you're the Dolphins, I don't have a problem with them making this move that early because I think at 3-3, you're looking at Miami and you're saying, okay, we're a couple games, we're not that far off from Buffalo. We're a game behind Buffalo. And we've got Rams, Cardinals, Chargers, Broncos, Jets, right? You're looking at your schedule and you're like, we have a lot of winnable games ahead of us, but that's only if we can get the offensive production we need. Because the defense, even though they've played great teams, 31 against Seattle is not bad. 31 against Seattle is a little high, but you can make up for that if you play good offense. If you have great offense. And I think Tua gives this team he just takes his team to another dimension offensively. At least that's my prediction. Comment down below what you think about Tua and being on the Dolphins. Do you think Tua starting is the right move for this team? Or do you think they should continue with Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe wait till Tua gets like a year of experience or as a backup or something until they make that move? Do you think it's too early for the move or do you think it's too late? Because I personally think it's a great move. Personally, I think it's a great move. I'm not really concerned about Tua. But yeah, the predictions for this week, a couple of games to look out for. Of course, Cowboys, Washington. It's going to be a good game. I'm gonna say Steelers, Titans. Obviously, two undefeated teams. Chiefs, Broncos is a sleeper. Chiefs, Broncos is a sleeper. Is a sleeper game. Right? Because I think Broncos defense could possibly do something. Honestly, we have a lot of great games. Steelers, Titans might be game. I don't know if this game of the week. They would have put them in a better time than 1 o'clock. But Steelers, Titans, that's going to be a great game. Two undefeated teams. One of them's going to go down on Sunday. Bears, Rams, that's going to be a great game. Buccaneers, Raiders, great game. 49ers, Patriots, great game. Chiefs, Broncos, great game. Seahawks, Cardinals, I don't know if that's going to be a great game, honestly. Steelers, Titans, great game. Seahawks, Cardinals could be a great game, but we'll see. Cowboys, Washington, it's going to be a great game only because of the rivalry, the history behind it, and the fact that the NFC East is so atrocious. But those are the games for Week 7 to look forward to. You definitely have some entertaining football to look forward to. Definitely won't disappoint. Keep your hand close to the remote and the TV this weekend because you know it's going to be a good time. Good week of football in the NFL and college football. But last but not least, but we've got to talk about it. We've got to talk about what happened in the NBA. I've been on Twitter lately. And what's been trending are NBA 2K21 just released their next gen. All right. NBA 2K21 just released their next gen. Their 2K they just released their ratings for a bunch of players. And it's obviously, like it is every year, it's very controversial. NBA 2K, I've seen what people have been commenting on Twitter. NBA 2K has been wilding. Some of their ratings are fair, some of them are foul. We're gonna start. Granted, they've only put out a few. They started with. Who did they start with? I believe they started with LeBron James. So basically, they might have actually released all of the players. They might have released all the players' 2K ratings. Basically, they have LeBron James as the highest ranked player on 2K21. They have him as 98 overall. I have no problem with that. LeBron James showed, he showed he's worth a 98 overall because he had second in MVP voting and he was the best player in the finals. Finals MVP, got the championship. I'd say he earned that. His partner in crime, Anthony Davis, is a 95 overall. Again, not bad. It's not bad. I have no problem with Anthony Davis being ranked what he is. Anthony Davis has been you can argue he's been the best player on the Lakers. You can argue. You can make that argument because he's just been that dominant for this team. I mean, he leads his team in I believe 13 statistical categories, right? He's been dominant. 95 overall. Those haven't been that controversial. But then we get to some of these and people start complaining. So I'm going to go through these and let you know what I think. They put Jimmy Butler at a 93 overall. They put him at a 93 overall. Do I agree with that? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes tentatively because I haven't seen this whole list. Tentatively, I'm going to say yes because Jimmy Butler showed in the postseason, especially in the finals. He had 2 triple-doubles. His team was a 5 seed. They were able to get from a 5-2 to the finals. He was clearly the most valuable player on that team. And he earned a 93. It says on here, Jimmy earns a 93 after his unbelievable playoff run, right? So, tentatively, I have no problem with that. Jamal Murray. Ooh, Jamal Murray. That's a bad man. Jamal Murray earned himself an 87 overall. Right, again, tentatively, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just expecting consistency from 2K. Like, the way I talk about 2K is, if you think this person's at 87 and you think this person's at 87, you're basically saying they're on the same level. They showed you this season that they are now on the same level. So, not bad. The 2-time MVP, Mr. Giannis Antetokounmpo, is a 97 overall. Again, I have no problem with that. He is the MVP. You could still make the argument he's the best player in basketball, depending on how you judge basketball. You can argue that. 97 overall. Granted, he had a little bit of a disappointing postseason, but his numbers weren't really an indication of a disappointing postseason. It was just, I think his team isn't really structured that great around him. They'll have to do some moves in the offseason. Luka Doncic, 94 overall. I'm not going to lie, that's a little high. I don't know if I can. That's a little high. I mean, you can put him over Jimmy Butler, but I feel like that's a little bit high for right now. When I'm thinking of 90, he's 94 is just one below Anthony Davis. A little bit below Anthony Davis. So I don't know about that. I don't know if I can go with that. Donovan Mitchell, 88. Rudy Gobert, 87. I think Donovan Mitchell should be at the same level as Jamal Murray. I don't think Donovan has showed me any indication that he's better than Jamal Murray, and vice versa. I think they're about on the same level. And the same goes for Devin Booker, who I'm just seeing now as an 88. Devin Booker hasn't even made the playoffs, so there's no reason for him to be higher than Jamal Murray for any reason. We saw, granted, Jamal averaged 18. We saw what he did in the postseason. That wasn't no 18 points he averaged in the postseason. The man dropped 50 religiously on every team. On the Clippers, he beat the Clippers. None of these guys beat the Clippers. Luka didn't even beat the Clippers. So I have to at least put him at the same level. And that goes to the same for Devin Booker. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum. Kemba and Jaylen Brown are 86. Jason Tatum's a 90. I don't have a problem with this. Kemba Walker was pretty disappointing. In fact, dare I say, no, I'm not going to go there because they have Donovan. I have Donovan and Devin Booker at 87. I'm going to put Jaylen Brown at 86 right now, but I think Jaylen Brown can jump up to as high as like 88, 89. I think Jaylen Brown is I think Jaylen Brown should be the second option on this team, and Kemba should be the third option. Me personally, after what I saw in the postseason, but I don't have a problem with it. Trae Young at 88. Again, I say this. I don't think Trae Young is giving me a reason to put him ahead of Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, or Jamal Murray. So I'm going to put all of them at 87. I personally think that's a fair evaluation for those four players. Comment down below what you think. Comment down below if you think what I'm saying is fair or foul. I think Trae Young is at 87. He's better than Kemba right now and better than Jaylen Brown. Or he had a better year, so I'm going to put him higher than those two. But I don't know if I don't think he had a better year than Booker, than Donovan, or Jamal Murray. I think they had all about the same year. If we're combining regular season and postseason, some of these guys didn't make the postseason. So whatever you're arguing for them, you're only arguing what they did in the regular season this year. So I think it's really close. I think it's really close. The beer, James Harden, a 96 overall. Right now, I'm gonna say that's probably a little bit too high. I don't know if I could put him ahead of Anthony Davis. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can go. I might put him at the same 95. I think both of them should be 95s. James Harden is a great player, but I think him at 95 is about right. I haven't seen the rest of his list. KD and Kyrie. Okay, so I'm guessing they're assuming KD is going to be healthy. They put him at 95 and Kyrie at 90. See, there we go. See, I don't have a problem with that. After what we've seen, most people don't assume KD will be the same player coming back from his Achilles. I personally think he will be the same. I think he'll average about the same. And I'll get into that on another episode or another video. But right now, I'd say he's about, like, based off of what he did last year, like, we can only evaluate KD from last year compared to these guys this year. They probably had about the same year. I put him at 95 overall. Harden at 95, AD at 95, KD at 95, right? And you guys can do the arguing of who you think's higher. They put the Splash Bros in here. All right. 89 for Klay Thompson, 95 for Steph Curry. I don't have a problem with Klay at 89. He didn't play all last year, but I think Klay can get up to as high as 91. And I don't have a problem with Steph Curry, even though he didn't play this year. Based off the performance he had last year, I think he's about 95. Because his postseason, even without KD, was amazing. Oh boy, they have Paul George on here. Hold on. Wait. They have Paul George on here. Let me see what this says. All right, let's see what Paul George reacts. Okay. So he's giving his opinion. That's going to be interesting. Oh, so he admits, he says he wouldn't be surprised if he was a sub 90. So he realized that he realized that he was a sub 90 this based off the performance he had. So he's an 88. I don't have a problem with that because his postseason performance was not great at all, and he missed a lot of time in the regular season. Paul George is a humble guy. Like last year was a 93 because he came off that MVP season. This year was a little disappointing. But trust me when I say this. I believe Paul George offensively will be the best player on the Clippers next year. I think I think the Clippers will look a lot like, how LeBron and AD looked this year. Like, you could argue who was more important to their team, but that's what I mean by that. I don't think they're the better duo, but I think in terms of, there were a lot of questions of who's the better player on this team, who's more valuable. I think you're going to have that question with the Clippers next season because Paul George is going to elevate his game. I think he's motivated. I think that whole team is motivated, and I wouldn't break them up. I'd run them back with the exact same team because all those people share the same motivation. I would add somebody on this team, though. I wouldn't break up this team, but I would definitely try and add somebody. But I'll get into that later on. Zion Williamson is an 86. I don't have a problem with Zion being an 86. I think that might be a little bit too high. I might put him at 84, 85. only because he only played like 20 games. If they're gonna put John Moran at 86, then I guess we're fine with that. Dame Lillard, the cover, 95. No problem with that whatsoever. Dame Lillard was the best point guard in the NBA last year, and I expect him to be all NBA first or second team this year coming up. High expectations for him. He had a great season. Those are all the ratings that have come out so far. Actually, let me check to see if they have more ratings out right now. No, they don't. Okay, so those are the ratings out so far. I've yet to see the rest of the ratings, but I promise you this. I'm a Washington Wizards fan, so you know I'm going to be checking on our ratings. If Bradley Beal's not at least a 90 overall this year, I'm going to be a little upset. Comment down below what you think about all of the ratings I've done so far. Do you think any of the ratings are fair or foul? Do you think I got anything wrong? Because personally, I would have tweaked them by maybe 1 or 2 points, a couple of players, but for the most part, I thought everything was spot on this year. I thought everything was pretty spot on. If we're going off of the year they had last year and the expectations for next year. But those are basically my opinions. Bradley Beal should also be a 90 overall. But comment down below what you think about the ratings for 2K21 Next Gen. Yeah, those are pretty much it. Comment down below what you think. I'm going to get into one last thing really quickly because there's been a rumor. Been a rumor in the air. You know, you smell it in the air. Those rumors out there. There have been those rumors that the Warriors are going to try and trade for something. They're going to try and trade for something. So that means, and by something I mean Bradley Beal. Do I think they should do that? No. Do I think they should do that? Absolutely not, because again, I think part of what makes the Warriors so successful is their defense. And without that, with Beal there, your offense does look explosive and dynamic, but that defense, there's going to be a lot of questions. And being that you're in the West, and they're going to expose your weaknesses more in the West. So that's what I'm going to go with there. That's what I'm going to go with. Let's see. Shams just broke some news. Nets guard Spencer Dinwiddie has parted with Rock Nation and is seriously considering representing himself. I'm not quite sure what that means, but I know Rock Nation, that means he could be considering Clutch Sports. It means he could be gone from the Nets because Rock Nation and Jay-Z and the Nets, that influence there. The fact that he left there, I don't know. I said this about the Nets. Listen, I said this about the Nets early. I said, this team on paper looks amazing, but I think they have too many guys. I think they're going to have a question about players understanding their role. You've got a lot of guys that proved themselves this year that think they should have a bigger role. And when you have two superstars like KD and Kyrie, you really need people to know their role. Spencer and Karis LeVert are going to have probably a smaller role than they did this year, especially with KD and Kyrie missing most of the year. They're going to have a decreased role or not as big of a role as they did last year. So, with that being said, I don't know 100%. I don't know 100% if their role on the team is solidified and if they're going to stay, because I think they can be, you know, a 20 point per game, 25 point per game scorer, those two on their own team. And they could definitely get a max from somebody. And I think that's going to be the problem that, not Denver, what am I talking about? Brooklyn runs into this year. I personally have no idea what Brooklyn's going to look like, especially considering that, you know, the KD, Kyrie, like, we don't need a coach. We hired Steve Nash. Steve Nash, if he can get this to work, that'd be fantastic. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of talent on this team that gives them a lot of questions. Another breaking news, the NCAA has decided to give all basketball players an extra season of eligibility, which probably means that there's going to be no season. I mean, I guess we can already see that now. They're not playing. No March Madness. So an extra year of eligibility. It's going to be good for the players. Shout out to them. Shout out to them. Recently, Stan Van Gundy agreed to a 4-year deal with the Pelicans. Interesting. The reason I say this is interesting is because I think Pelicans have a really high ceiling this year and a really low floor if they underperform. I think their ceiling is a 5 seed in the Western Conference. I think their ceiling is a 5 seed in the West. I think their floor is a 12 seed in the West. So they can finish anywhere between those. And I think depending on what they do with what they have, there's a potential that they could exceed expectations and they can get the most out of the players they have on the floor, or they can disappoint. I think Stan Van Gundy's a pretty good coach. So time will tell. We'll see with this team. I think it's a great move. The Lakers in their offseason hopes, they're trying to get Luol Deng off the buyout. The Lakers are trying to get Luol Deng off the buyout for their team because he's owed a salary through 2022. Matter of fact, real quick, I'm going to say this. Shout out to Luol Deng's agent. Whoever his agent is that was able to get him on this roster, technically he could win a ring because he was on the roster, and get finessing this man into a paycheck for the next 2 years, and he hasn't played since 2018. Shout out to you, whoever you are that's Luol Deng's agent, because you deserve all the money he's paying you and more, because that's remarkable what he was able to do. I don't know how that's crazy. But anyways, the Lakers are trying to get him off the books, saying they had a career-ending injury. I mean, I don't have a problem with the Lakers trying this, right? They're trying to clear up cap space, and he hasn't played for them. He agreed to a buyout in 2018, barely played after that. Do I think they'll get the buyout? No, because chances are they're going to point to this isn't a career-ending injury because he still played like 20-some games after. So it didn't end his career. He just hasn't played since then, right? So I think that's going to be really the part where that comes into play. But if you're the Lakers, right, a lot, Lakers fans, I love you, Lakers fans. Shout out, congrats to Lakers fans. You should be happy that your team won the championship. But I'm not going to lie. Some of you guys act like there's no such thing as a cap. There's no such thing as the cap. Y'all act like y'all have unlimited cap space. We could sign Oladipo and Bradley Beal, or Lonzo and Brandon Ingram are coming back. That was just all part of Magic's master plan, right? Like, no, right? I saw what Shannon Sharp said about and Snoop talking about how Beal bought a home in LA, right? But Beal said he's content in Washington, so we know you're not getting him this year unless you trade for him. The problem is, what do you guys really have to trade? If I'll say this right now, if I'm Washington's GM and you want to offer me Danny Green and Kuzma and a first round pick, I will look you straight and I will hang the phone up on you for trying that, right? Because your best asset is, let's say your best asset is Kyle Kuzma, right? If your best asset is Kyle Kuzma, why would we want to give that? Why would we want to give up Beal for Kyle Kuzma? Because Kyle Kuzma, even though sure he may have potential, but he really struggled. He really struggled in the postseason. He struggled a lot in the regular season too. So we don't really know what we're gonna get from Kyle Kuzma. Same with Danny Green. Yes, he's a veteran, but why wouldn't you want to keep a veteran? Also, if you want to give him away, Danny Green really struggled. He struggled in the postseason as well. He didn't look great at all. Lakers fans were flaming him, talking about the man can't shoot, Danny ain't green, right? So, obviously, if you're Washington, you're hearing this, or you're any free agent team, you're any team in the NBA, you're hearing this, and now you want to give him up and get a star player in return, chances are they're not going to want to give that to you. Your first round pick is not going to be that high. So, honestly, it comes down to this. Can LeBron and Rich Paul pull something together? Right? Can LeBron and Rich Paul pull something together and get a third star? Because I said this personally. I said, this Lakers team is great, but I don't think they repeat with the same team next year. Right? I never thought that the Lakers were better than the Clippers, but I did say that the Clippers could lose I think the Clippers were the most likely to lose to the Nuggets out of every team, because Jokic pulls the big man out and gives them better floor spacing, which is problematic for the Clippers. I think, granted, I'm not in the majority with this opinion, but I do think if the Clippers were to run it back and play the Lakers, that they would win in a 7-game series. Just because I think the Lakers have players that could throw at LeBron James. Now, do they have someone to throw at Anthony Davis? No. But I think the Clippers are in a better position Well, excuse me. I think the Clippers are in a better position to trade for somebody that can do that if they feel they need to do that than the Lakers are. If you're the Lakers, you just want to sign somebody in free agency that wants to come to LA and join the contender. That's going to be your main option. That's going to be your best bet. If you're hoping you could trade for somebody if you're LA, chances are that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And a lot of guys on your team on the Lakers just became free agents. KCP, free agent. Rondo, free agent. Granted, I think KCP will sign back. I don't think Rondo will, right? You have Caruso. You have Avery Bradley, who didn't play in the bubble. So you have a good team, right? But again, I do think you definitely need a third star. And are you going to get that third star? I don't know. So while I would make you guys favorites out of respect for winning the championship and having like two of the top 5 players in the NBA on the same team, which no other team in the NBA has, again, there are still a lot of questions. I don't think those two together, that team is deep enough to get it done next season without making a move. It's the Lakers though, so the Lakers can pull magic out of a hat and sign somebody and make them just as unbeatable. But I just want to say that the Clippers are understanding like they don't have much time left. If you're the Clippers, I hear people talking about break up the Clippers. I wouldn't break up the Clippers, right? You had a catastrophic 3-1 loss in a bubble in a unique historic season where the season stopped when you were in a rhythm and then you had to pick that up again, right? You lost under historically bad circumstances, right? So I wouldn't break that up. I wouldn't break it up, especially considering you signed Ty Lue. So you're going to run it back with Ty Lue. You're not going to give Ty Lue a bunch of scrubs next year. And again, apparently word on the street is that a lot of NBA players would love to play for Tyronn Lue, right? They would love to play for him. So without even realizing that Ty Lue is low-key just a free agent market for Clippers, players that might be interested in playing for the Clippers. Lakers-Clippers, that duel is going to be back next year. Granted, the Lakers own LA right now, but Lakers, I feel like the Clippers, if I'm being honest with you Lakers fans, I think the Clippers are in a better position in free agency this year than you guys are. Solely because the Clippers have guys that they can actually trade. They have players they can actually trade. But comment down below, what do you think the Lakers should consider doing? Throw out some trade scenarios for any team in the NBA. I'll definitely try and respond to those, right? Comment what you think would be great moves or great players that Clippers, Lakers, any team in the NBA, Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, any team would be a good trade to conduct and try and get any team from a pretender to a contender or a contender to a favorite in the finals next year. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting because I think this free agency will probably be one of the best. You've got Houston. Should they run it back? I think Houston should run it back, but also they should try and get a center that's not 6'7". They should probably get a legitimate center because you tried that for Russell Westbrook's, enjoyment and improvement, and it let you down. It was more of a weakness than a benefit, if you ask me. Also, Houston's payroll is expensive, so you really don't have a choice if you're Houston. It's kind of just like, you kind of have no choice.
It's childhood.
But that's basically all we have for today. I'm going to wrap that up today. I was going to do a trivia, but we're basically about out of time today. I'm trying to think of the title of this episode. I'm going to call, because I put on the sunglasses. I'm going to put it on one more time to wrap it up. An ode to Cowboys fans out there. This is episode 29. An ode to Cowboys fans. You're listening to Pull Up for the J podcast on YouTube and all streaming platforms. Make sure you go check it out and share with your friends. But anyways, that's all the time I have for today. Stay safe. Don't text and drive. Share this with your friends. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.